Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Radha
srimadbhagavatam ki all glories of the Son of Bhagavatam, all glories of the Son of Bhagavatam, all glories of the Son of Bhagavatam, all glories of Shri Guru and Shri Guru. Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 So reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, entitled The Creation of the Fourth Order. I guess fourth canto, fourth order. I seem to remember. We're on text 9. Chapters entitled Genealogical Table of the Daughters of Manu. Priyavat Vratotana Pado Manuputra Mahajaso Tatputra Pautra Naprinam Anuvritam Tat Antaram Priyavrato Tano Napado Manuputra Mahajaso Tatputra Pautra Nirnam Anuvritam Tat Antaram Priyavratatanapado Manuputra Mahajaso Tatputra Pautra Niptirnam Anuvritam Tarantaram. Okay, word by word. Priyavrata. Priyavrata. Uttanapada. Uttanapad. Manuputra. Sons of Manu. Maha Ojasao. Very great. Powerful. Tat. There. Putra. Sons. Pautra. Grandsons. Naptrinam. Grandsons from the daughter. Anuvritam. Following. Tat Anantaram. In that Manu's period. Translation. Swayambhuva Manu's two sons, Priyavrata and Uttanapad, became very powerful kings, and their sons and grandsons spread all over the three worlds during that period. Devahuti Tata Kardamana Majam Manuhu Tatsambandhi Shuta Prayam Bhavata Gadato Mama. My dear son, Swayambhuva Manu handed over his very dear daughter, Devahuti, to Kardama Muni. I have already spoken to you about them, and you have heard about them almost in full. Dakshaya Brahma Putraya Prasutim Bhagavan Manuhu Prayachad Yatkita Sargas Trilokam Vitato Mahan. Swayambhuva Manu handed over his daughter Prasuti to the son of Brahma named Daksha, who was also one of the progenitors of the living entities. The descendants of Daksha are spread throughout the three worlds. Yak Kardama Sutta Prokta Nava Brahmashir Patnayaha Tasam Prasuti Prasavam Prochyamanam Nibodhime. You have already been informed about the 9 daughters of Kardama Muni, who were handed over to 9 different sages. I shall now describe the descendants of those 9 daughters. Please hear from me. Purport. The third canto has already described how Kardama Muni begot 9 daughters in Devahuti, and how all the daughters were later handed over to great sages, like Marichi, Atri, and Vashishta. So I'll just read 2 more verses. Patni Marichistu Kala Sushave Kardamatmaja Kashyapam Purnimanam Cha Yayor Apuritam Jagat. Kardama Muni's daughter Kala, who was married to Marichi, gave birth to 2 children, whose names were Kashyapa and Purnima. Their descendants are spread all over the world. Alright, so this is the last one. So Jamal, tomorrow's 15. Dharma Seta Prabhu will give 15. Purnima Sutta Virajam Vishwagam Cha Parantapa Devakulyam Harirpada Shochad Yabut Sharid Divaha. My dear Vidura, of the 2 sons, Kashyapa and Purnima begot 3 children, namely Viraja, Vishvaga, and Devakulya. Of these 3, Devakulya was the water which washed the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead, and which later on transformed into the Ganges of the heavenly planets. Purport. Of the 2 sons Kashyapa and Purnima, herein Purnima's descendants are described. An elaborate description of these descendants will be given in the 6th canto. It is also understood herein that Devakulya is the presiding deity of the river Ganges, which comes down from the heavenly planets to this planet and is accepted to be sanctified because it touched the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Hari. Om Ganativarandasya Gananchana Shalakaya Chakshulanamalitamine Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Kam Karitvachalam Pangam Langa Tekadimya Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Gurundinitarinam Vancha Kapadubhisha Kripa Sindhivya Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Guru Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Yeah, I read something interesting the other day. One of Krishna's pastimes, one of our previous acharyas, he says that when Krishna killed Putana, she was an ordinary size, but then she expanded. I think it was 7 miles or 12 miles. I think it was 12 miles. So she expanded 12 miles, and the Vrajvasis, they because they had to do something with the body, they chopped up the body and they burned it, and it smelt like a guru. It's very fragrance, nice fragrance. But it said that when her body fell down, it said that he said that Kamsa's the mango trees in Kamsa's what is it called? Orchard, yeah, orchard. The mango trees in Kamsa's orchard, the body smashed those. So I thought that was interesting. Never heard that before. So yeah, everything within Kali Yuga, within this particular age of quarrel, hypocrisy, all that, it's impure, as we have experience with, right? The air, the water, how things are made, just everything. It's just impure. And therefore devotees have to be very careful as far as possible, because we are living here. I mean, if maybe it'd be easier just to die than be, try to follow all these guidelines of purity in this age. But as far as possible, devotees have to be careful not to fall into, you could say, impurity. For example, nowadays, all these big manufacturers, they package so many things, they manufacture so many things. For example, trail mix. This is related to trail mix, or even dates, right? Dates, yes, dates. So, in those, if you look at the label, if you look closely, that's why devotees have to look closely at all these labels, because it says packaged in a facility that on shared equipment with eggs. So, so what is that saying? What is that saying practically? It's saying practically that, hey, there may be some eggs, whatever, in this product, so if you're allergic to it, we're warning you. So in other words, devotees have to be careful. So, of course, there's some packages that don't say that, and that's what we're supposed to go for. And specifically in relation to the deities, I mean, we get all types of dried fruit, this and that for the deities, and whatever. Sometimes devotees buy from themselves, this and that, but. So yeah, so there's so many examples of how this impurity could, we could fall into it, and therefore there's process to become purified. And here it's mentioned the Ganges. So we bathe in the Ganges. We go to India, right? We bathe in the Ganges. We have our Ganga water back here, right? Bottled water. And this is purifying. But we also have to engage in such acts in the proper way. For example, I mean, there are buffalo, there are cows, there are dogs, that bathe in the Ganges. But what is their understanding of the Ganges? What is their understanding of, oh, this is the water that washed Lord Vishnu's feet? Do they have any understanding? What do you think, Mukunda? I don't think so. Yeah, they don't have any understanding. And aside from that, it says that if one goes to a holy place simply to bathe, then what are they compared to? Does anyone remember besides Dravida Prabhu? What are they compared to? Those who go to a holy place just to bathe. What are they compared to? It's a verse in the Bhagavatam. Yeah, cows and donkeys. Gokara. They're compared to cows and donkeys. Why? Because they don't hear from the sadhus, right? So you go to the holy places to get the association of the sadhus. And hear from them. So that's the idea, that we have to engage. Okay, bathing in the Ganges, fine. That's great. That's wonderful. That's recommended. But also alongside with that, we have to hear from saintly people about Krishna consciousness. So yeah, there's certain ways we engage in these different activities to promote ourselves, right? And we're not. What I mean by that is not promote ourselves like promote our glories or promote ourselves in a material way, like in the company, they want to promote themselves or they want to get promoted. But promote ourselves to Krishna consciousness by the mercy of Krishna and the Guru. So, and there's so many verses and so many books in so many of our books that describe, the proper way to see things. So there's one verse in the Nectar of Instruction by Rupa Goswami, translated by Prabhupada. Dishta subhava janaterva pushascha dosar na prakritattvamahi bhakta janasya pashyat gangam bashamna kalu budbuddha pena pankar brahmadravattam abhiga chatinirda dharmahi. You know that one? You're learning? You know it? Okay, good. So this is, I'll read it. So it's being situated in its original Krishna conscious position, a pure devotee does not identify with the body. Such a devotee should not be seen from a materialistic point of view. Indeed, one should overlook a devotee's having a body born in a low family, a body with a bad complexion, a deformed body, or a diseased or infirm body. According to ordinary vision, such imperfections may seem prominent in the body of a pure devotee. But despite such seeming defects, the body of a pure devotee cannot be polluted. It is exactly like the waters of the Ganges, which sometimes during the rainy season are full of bubbles, foam, and mud. The Ganges water does not become polluted. Those who are advanced in spiritual understanding will bathe in the Ganges without considering the condition of the water. So, Tirthamaraj told me the first time I went to India, I don't know, it was probably 20 years ago or something, but 15, 20 years ago. He said that they went to go bathe in the Ganges and there's like a dead body floating by. It was an animal, like a, I don't know, buffalo or something. It was all bloated. It was like, so then he walked out, because it's a natural thing. But then he went back in, and then another something was floating by. And then eventually, the third time he just went, okay, and he just bathed in it, So, they do that sometimes, right? So, but whether it's contaminated materially in whatever way it is, it says a learned person will bathe in the river. Why? Because it's sacred due to being in contact with Krishna, or Vishnu, Lord Vamanadev. And so, I'll read a bit of the purport here. No one should criticize the bodily defects of a pure devotee. If there are such defects, they should be overlooked. What should be taken into account is the spiritual master's main business, which is devotional service, pure service to the Supreme Lord. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 9:30, Apichet Siddharachayo bhajate mam ananyabhak sadar eva sa mantavya samyak vyasvasito hisaha. Even if a devotee sometimes seems to engage in abominable activities, he should be considered a sadhu, a saintly person, because his actual identity is that of one engaged in loving service of the Lord. Once devotees asked Prabhupada, how many pure devotees are there in ISKCON? You know what Prabhupada said? He said, how many devotees do we have in our ISKCON now? And devotees said, whatever, 75. He said, okay, that's how many pure devotees. So of course there's, you could say, different levels or angles of vision of pure devotees, but we're on the path of pure devotion. In other words, he is not to be considered an ordinary human being. Even though a pure devotee may not be born in a Brahmin or Goswami family, if he is engaged in the service of the Lord, he should not be neglected. In actuality, there cannot be a family of Goswamis based on material considerations, caste, or heredity. The Goswami title is actually the monopoly of the pure devotees. Thus, when we speak of the 6 Goswamis headed by Rupa Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, and Sanatana Goswami, Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami had practically become Mohammedans and had therefore changed their names to Dabir Khas and Sakir Malik. But Mahaprabhu himself made them Goswamis. Therefore, the Goswami title is not hereditary. The word Goswami refers to one who can control the senses, who is master of the senses. A devotee is not controlled by the senses, but is controller of the senses. Consequently, he should be called Swami or Goswami, even though he may not be born in a Goswami family. According to this formula, the Goswamis who are descendants of Sri Nityananda Prabhu and Sri Advaita Prabhu are certainly devotees, but devotees coming from other families should not be discriminated against. Indeed, whether the devotees come from a family of previous acharyas or from an ordinary family, they should be treated equally. One should not think, oh, here is an American Goswami, and discriminate against him, nor should one think, here is a Nityananda Vamsa Goswami. There is an undercurrent of protest against our awarding the title Goswami to American Vaishnavas of the Krishna conscious movement. Sometimes people flatly tell the American devotees that their sannyas or title of Goswami is not bona fide. Can you believe that? You're a sannyasi, Prabhupada gives you sannyas, and whenever you visit some temple or something, they tell you, hey, your sannyas is not bona fide. Your Goswami title is not bona fide. Interesting, no? Yeah, sorry, Prabhu. Yeah, we're not going to call you Swami. Sorry, Prabhu. Maybe not even Prabhu, you know. However, according to the statements of Rupa Goswami in this verse, an American Goswami and a Goswami in a family of acharyas are non-different. Now, of course, we've heard this exchange that quite some time, but quite a few times, I'm sure. But there were some Prabhupada disciples. They went to a temple, and and then the pujaris, right, in India, worshiping the deity. They said, "Oh, it's very nice.
That is, you can start with the Vedic conception of the universe.
American born and you're chanting Hare Krishna. It's very wonderful. And if you continue to do that in your next life, you'll be born in a Brahmin family in India, and you'll be allowed to worship the deities." And the devotees just they didn't know what to say, so they said, okay. And then they told Prabhupada about that, and Prabhupada said, you should have told them that. Oh, it's very nice that you're worshiping the deities, and in your next life, you'll take birth in America, in Long Beach. No, I'm just joking. You took birth in, where were you born? Iowa. You take birth in Iowa, or Missouri, or, West Virginia, or SanDiego, whatever. Phoenix. You'll take birth in Phoenix. Is that where you're born? You're born in Italy, huh? Maryland, okay. Anyways, whatever. You'll take birth in all these wonderful places. And then you'll be able to engage in the Sankirtan movement. That's what Prabhupada said. So yeah, that's an interesting point. And it is interesting that Prabhupada, he referred to the sadhu. There's so many verses Prabhupada could have quoted to describe a sadhu, right? There's Tatikshva, Karunaka, Surade, Sahadehinam, right? He's tolerant, merciful, compassionate, Lord Kapiladev's teachings. There's so many verses about describing a sadhu. But what does Prabhupada quote here to describe a sadhu? Apichet sarachet bhajate mam ananyabhak. That even if he's sometimes seems to engage in bhakti activities, he should be considered a sadhu, a saintly person. Why? Not because of his abominable activities, but because his actual identity is that of one engaged in the loving service of the Lord. So he's fixed in his determination. That's why. So it's not that, his abominable activities wonderful and right. They're abominable. But he's considered a sadhu because he's fixed determination with the idea of giving them up. So there's a very interesting book which I don't think is so well known, but I do think it's in the Veda base. Is this Vrindavan Days in the Veda base, Trivita Prabhu? By Hai... Yeah. Yeah, it might be there. So, it's not a very well-known book, but it is quite interesting. And in chapter 6, Hayagriva Prabhu, who has left this world quite some years ago, but he, in his book, chapter 6 of Vrindavan Days, he talks about, it's a book, chapter entitled Darshan. And he describes his darshan with Prabhupada in Radha Damodar Temple. Oh, it is in there. Okay, you could read it all, because, yeah, it's quite interesting. It's a good book. So I'll just read some of that, and I thought it'd be interesting to all of you, because I've read many things, many remembrances of Prabhupada and all that, and I found this quite, he was really frank, like up front with Prabhupada, which I've never seen so much in his, you'll see, so. Above Srila Prabhupada's head hangs a colored print of Lord Krishna in a wooden frame. The frame itself is garlanded with red flowers called duck in Sanskrit, a word meaning on fire, and small white flowers called arni, which look and smell like honeysuckle. I never felt that my Guru Maharaj has been absent from me for a moment, Srila Prabhupada says. I'm always aware that he's present in my heart. I sit before him on the floor, ashamed, and yet not ashamed enough. I'd broken a couple of the rules and regulations. Moreover, knowing my own weaknesses, I'll break them again. If I were truly ashamed or repentant, I'd be so horrified that I'd rather die first. My bad habit of sinning, repenting, then sinning again is rooted in my bad Catholic tradition. I remember high school days when I knelt in the confessional before Father O'Farrell. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It has been 1 week since my last confession. I have yielded to impure thoughts and acts. And Father O'Farrell, leaning his big furrowed head on one hand and fingering his rosary on the other hand, said, "My boy, the monkeys and baboons do that sort of thing, you know." Christ said to forgive the sinner 7 times 70, but Srila Prabhupada said, aren't you ashamed to go back and say, forgive me, over and over? This is simply taking advantage of the Lord's mercy. It's show bottle, that's all. You sin once, I forgive you. You sin twice, I forgive. You sin 3 times, I don't forgive. Punishment must be there for rectification, otherwise rascals will keep on sinning. I look at the colored print of Lord Krishna. I'm ashamed to look directly at Srila Prabhupada. So he's right there in Prabhupada's room, just them two. He sits cross-legged, fingering his beads and chanting. I want him to speak, to tell me where to go from here. I look at Lord Krishna and pray for guidance. What is man that thou art mindful of him? Krishna sits on a rock, one lotus foot tucked behind the other ankle, his yellow dhoti drawn up above his knee. One arm is around a calf, one hand holds his flute. A garland hangs around his neck. He looks off into distance as if waiting for someone. Perhaps he's at Raman Reti, waiting for Balarama to come and play. Or maybe he's waiting for his nightly meeting with Radharani. Srila Prabhupada is also wearing a garland. On his forehead is sandalwood paste. His golden hand suddenly turns upward in the dim light. Alright, so this is Prabhupada speaking. Krishna and light, he says softly, then turning his hand downward, Maya and shadow. I close my physical eyes and see in my mind's eye his image in his flickering golden hand, then open my eyes again. Light or shadow, he says, Krishna or Maya, it's your choice. Which side is up? It all depends on your desire. I've come to Vrindavan because I want Krishna, I say, but I am torn. It's like two people sitting here, Hayagrivadas and Howard, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So what is this Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde?
It's a classic story about a guy who was like a schizophrenic.
Oh, okay.
And Dr. Jekyll is the good guy, and Mr. Hyde is the bad guy.
Oh, I see. There it is, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. A lot of people have that, right? Prabhupada says, so let the Maya go. Oh man, that's so difficult, right? Let Maya go. Howard is born with this body and dies with this body. Hayagrivadas is the eternal personality of the soul, the real you. I think at death he turns back into Dr. Jekyll, I say. That depends on your thoughts at death. Then I have to learn to think of Krishna. That's this bhakti yoga process, says Prabhupada. The science of the soul, the science of God. Now in the mornings I'm lecturing on this nectar devotion. So you must come and listen and write down your realizations. My problem is that the false ego won't stay dead. I say, even though I want him to, why? That's also Arjuna's question, Prabhupada says. He asks Krishna, why does a man sin as if forced to? And what is Krishna's reply? So what's Krishna's reply? It's lust only, Arjuna. Kama. Kama, I say, lust. The eternal enemy of the world, Prabhupada says. The enemy within. Conquer him, and you're in Vaikuntha, you're in light. Surrender to him. What is it?
Him, Kama. Conquer him, Kama, you're in Vaikuntha. Surrender to him, Kama, you're in hell.
Yeah, and you're in hell, in darkness. That means rebirth. It seems that I keep condemning myself to hell. This bhakti yoga is practical, scientific proved, says Prabhupada. If it doesn't work, then you should examine yourself to see that you're following properly. Do you think that you can try to cheat Krishna without his knowledge? So yeah, this is an important point. It said, if it doesn't work, Prabhupada's saying, because Hayagriva is saying it's difficult. I'm having a hard time, you know. But Prabhupada's saying if it doesn't work, then you should examine yourself. Am I following it properly? So it does work, but we have to follow it properly. Do you think you could try to cheat Krishna without his knowledge? No, I say. What do you think omniscience means? Again, I look down at the floor. I remember one of my grandmother's favorite quotes. There's always an eye upon you. It made me feel uneasy. Even as a child, I used to hate the idea. You know, there's always an eye upon you, right? It means all-knowing, Srila Prabhupada, I answer. Krishna knows your innermost thoughts, Prabhupada says. Nothing is secret to him. Even if you think you can hide your sins from your guru, how long do you think you can go on committing them? Do you think your guru can't tell which disciple is cheating and which isn't? No, Srila Prabhupada. I resist the urge to hide. I remember the picture of Dorian Gray. Is anybody familiar with that? Dorian, yeah? It explains here. All of Dorian's sins were manifest on a canvas portrait. Oh, they're all on a canvas portrait, all the sins, which he kept hidden. So he's got that portrait, but it's hidden. Although the aging Dorian's face remained youthful and unblemished, his hidden portrait was ghastly. And it was Freud who noted that a man's guilt oozes out from every pore of his body. Even an ordinary man can often tell when you're lying, Prabhupada continues, what to speak of Krishna or your guru. I'm sorry, Srila Prabhupada. Within your heart, Krishna is Paramatma's witness. Sarvata panipadam tat sarvato shiromukam. His hands, legs, eyes, and faces are everywhere, and he is hearing everything. He is the supersoul. Krishna within every atom is witness. Krishna witnesses in so many ways. How do you think you can avoid him? I don't, but I always think that since Krishna knows everything, he understands everything. Yes, he knows you better than you know yourself. Krishna not only knows everything about this life, he knows all your previous lives as well. Arjuna, I can remember all the births we have passed together, but you cannot. That is the difference between God and the conditioned living entity, forgetfulness. So it goes on a little while more. Sometimes I get discouraged, Srila Prabhupada. I say, I feel like the mouse before the moon. Does anyone ever get discouraged sometimes? I do. Of course, it's impossible by your own endeavor. If you want to see the king, there are so many impediments. But if the king wants to see you, there's no problem. If you take one sincere step toward Krishna, he'll take 10 toward you. But to get him completely, you have to surrender completely. As soon as you're purified, you see nothing but Krishna. Devotional service is the purification process, but you must be patient. This is an important point coming up, patient. And Prabhupada says interesting things about patience here. I'm afraid I'm very impatient, Srila Prabhupada. It's a family trait. So does anyone have impatience as a family trait? Maybe? Oh, he smiles. This is what Prabhupada says. You Americans are spoiled children. Krishna consciousness is not an LSD pill you can purchase for $5. No. Great sages undergo penances for many lifetimes to attain Krishna. But now in Kali Yuga, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given us the easiest method, chanting. It doesn't even matter what name of God you chant. This is not a sectarian process. The Lord has millions of names, and his transitive potencies are in all of them. Drifting in from the street are the cries of the old women finishing their evening rounds. Radhe Shyam, Radhe Shyam. I would have been luckier to have been born one of them. Peasants, simple folk, the earth's meek and humble. They never seem to have difficulty being God conscious. They but see a deity, sadhu, temple, or picture of Krishna, and their eyes brighten in ecstasy. I look up and see that Prabhupada is laughing at me. Prabhupada's laughing. In the picture above him, Krishna also seems amused. What do you think, Hayagriva? Is this not an easy process? Again, I'm at loss of words. You make it sound easy, I say. It's easy when I'm with you. But it's not so easy? No, I say. Actually, it is very difficult. If a child can do it, what's the difficulty? Anyone can chant, dance, take prasadam. And then Hayagriva says, it's the rules. If you chant, the rules are easy. They're only difficult because you stop chanting. Therefore, in the beginning, I suggested that you chant 64 rounds daily. But you complained that that was too much. So I said, all right, 16 then. And now you complain that the rules are too difficult. This is a very interesting point. It's the mind, I say. The mind keeps wallowing in stool even when I'm chanting. The mind must be controlled by the intelligence. If it is controlled, it is your friend. Uncontrolled, your enemy. You control the mind by reading Bhagavad Gita and chanting. The mind still wanders, I say. I find myself thinking of things that happened 20 years ago, or of the future, or something comes along to distract me. Therefore you have to beat the mind every morning with your shoes, he laughs. Let the mind know who's boss. Gotta let the mind know who's boss. Mana eva manushyanam karanam bandha mokshayo. Mind is the cause of bondage, and mind is the cause of liberation. Bandhasya visa sango maktyaya nivasam manaha. Mind absorbed in sense objects is the cause of bondage, and mind attached to Krishna is the cause of liberation. My mind's a wild tiger, I complain. That means if you don't control him, he'll kill you. But if you control him, you have a friend, then success is guaranteed. Maya will stand before you with folded hands. Jai, when will that day come? When you get serious. So he says, Jai Prabhupada, when will that day come? When you get serious, that's what Prabhupada says. He says, it all depends on your desire. Krishna consciousness cannot be checked by any material impediment. It seems hard. Being in Maya isn't hard. Rebirth isn't hard. But it's a vicious circle, I say. How can I get serious and surrender when the mind won't let me surrender? Well, if it's not possible for you all at once, he says patiently, it's another interesting point, then just take a step at a time. In the morning, attend Mangalarti and chant 16 rounds. Do this steadily. It may be some austerity, but you will see the tiger mind grow quieter. Just try. When Krishna sees you're trying, he will say, "Oh, my dear boy, now you are sincerely approaching me. How can I help you?" Krishna is unconquerable. No one can defeat him, but he becomes bound by his devotees' love. You're experiencing some difficulties now because of old bad habits, but sooner or later all this will be cleared because you have taken to this process. That's the beauty of Krishna consciousness. Execute 15% in this life, next life you start at 16%. It's guaranteed that someday you will become 100% Krishna conscious. Just see. Srila Prabhupada hands me the copy of Bhagavad Gita on his desk. Alright, so we're coming to end soon. Just read, he says, Apichet sadarachayo. Apichet, I look up the words in the index of Sanskrit verses, then read the translation. Even if one commits the most abominable actions, if he is engaged in devotional service, he is to be considered saintly because he is properly situated. He quickly becomes righteous and attains lasting peace. Lasting peace. O son of Kunti, declare it boldly that my devotee never perishes. You are so merciful, Srila Prabhupada. I say, my eyes filling with tears, and I am such a rascal. And Prabhupada says, just don't forget Krishna. You have already surrendered so much, and Krishna does not forget. Just continue your writing and editing. Even if you have material desires to fulfill, go to Krishna. He'll satisfy your material desires, and at the same time, you'll get shelter at Krishna's lotus feet. I promise you. Don't be disturbed. So yeah, it's a very, I thought that was a nice chapter, Darshan, it's called. I finished this book recently. So yeah, it's my first time reading the book. So there's many things to learn from that. But anyways, you heard many points you could think of. So does anyone have any questions or? Yes, Jamal? Hayagriva? Hayagriva, yeah. Well, yeah, I mean the spiritual master's forgiving and Krishna's forgiving, the devotees are forgiving. So, but then you're saying that, okay, well, he's saying that, oh, I forgive you once, 2, 3 times, but then there's the punishment, right? Because you're saying people have to be rectified. So, and then how you balance with the apichits, even if they engage in the most abominable activity, considered saintly. Well, the thing is, it's, I mean, we do, if we do things that are out of line of nature, like, you know, not in harmony with nature and people and God, Krishna, then yeah, we naturally suffer. That's just how it goes. I mean, that's my experience. And that suffering is punishment. Just like yeah, so it's punishment. So, and that punishment is actually supposed to help us learn what not to do. So we do something stupid, we do something foolish, we do something against the laws of nature, outside of the not in line with, not in harmony, right, with others and Krishna, then we suffer, and that's supposed to be learning. So, oh, I'm not going to do that again. That was really that was really bad. You know, I don't want to go through that again. So, but the quicker we can learn, the better. I mean, I was just thinking about sometimes what they do with dogs, right? When the dog passes stool in the house, you know what they do to the dog, right? You know, take the dog and it's really disgusting. But the dog, he realizes that, oh, hey, well, I can't do this again. Why? Because I don't want to suffer like that. You know. So in a similar way, I mean, the conditioned soul, humans, the conditioned souls, I mean, we do all types of foolish things. I know I do foolish things. And I have to suffer on account of that. And the hope is that I actually learn not to do that. That's the whole point. So in other words, it is not just aimless suffering, or not just suffering for no reason. There is a reason, and it's a very good reason. The reason is so we learn what not to do. And a lot of the times people have experiences that, you know, they do something to somebody, right, whatever it may be, and later on in life, or sometime after, that comes back to them. Somebody does the same thing to them. You know, they cheat somebody, someone cheats them, you know, karma, right? So in other words, they learn from that. Oh, I shouldn't be doing this. Why? Because they don't want to suffer. I mean, that's one thing. But so it's not that Prabhupada would say that these aren't excuses, you know, for devotees. Oh, okay, well, I'm a devotee, so I could just do any nonsense thing. But Krishna's being merciful, and the devotee's trying to give up, and the devotee's, you know, fixed in determination. I mean, I did hear one nice quote some time ago. It said that the sin isn't so much as in the falling, you know, but it's in not getting up and continuing. So I thought that's interesting. That okay, people are conditioned, yes, naturally. I mean, they're attached to Maya. There's going to be some problems, but if they don't give up, the real problem is when they give up, because that means you lost. It means you're a loser. You lost the battle completely. So the main point is not to give up. So anyways, I don't know if that exactly answers. Maybe it was a little. Is that okay, or you want to ask something else?
You have two different things going on here. One is the spiritual master forgiving, and the other is Krishna's statement in Gita. So the spiritual master is forgiving means that you're still in his good graces, so that's encouraging. But if we keep trying to use that as an impetus to stay
I just want to say one last thing. One time before I joined the temple, I was chanting 16 rounds, but somehow or other I missed that day. There was some family thing and this. And I just felt absolutely 100%, 108% miserable. I was absolutely miserable. And I was thinking that this is, the chanting's like, it is our medicine actually. Medicine means it helps you feel alive, good. Like Prabhupada said, I'm alive by my morning walks, my Ayurvedic medicine. So, I didn't do that one day, and I really felt it. And Devaki said this interesting thing. She said that specifically, but also the chanting which we do has to be attentive and all that. And she said that, she gave this example that you have an empty capsule. In other words, the medicine's not in there. So this inattentive chanting, sometimes we're not feeling nourished because, maybe nothing's in the capsule, or not much is in the capsule. So we want to take a full... Anyway. All right, Granth srimadbhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
And of course, in the Vedic conception, the universe is created by the Supreme Being, by Krishna. But basically, the description in the Vedas is that the earth is considered to be at the center of a relatively small structure, and the various planets, sun and moon and so forth, are circling around the earth. And out at some distance, there's a series. Please don't do anything more with the microphones, because it's going to make that noise again. So either it works or it doesn't, but let's just leave it. So, going out to a certain distance, there's a series of shells. Actually, it's described there are 7 shells covering the universe, according to the Vedic picture. And in the Vedic literature, it's described that there are many universes existing within the causal ocean, and each one is surrounded by a series of shells like this. And these are practically innumerable. There are various descriptions given. For example, they're compared to bubbles of foam within the ocean. You can just imagine how many bubbles of foam there are in the ocean. Or they're compared to the mustard seeds in a barrel of mustard seeds, and so on. Well, in other parts of the world, this same conception existed. So, in the ancient Mediterranean area, where the Greek and Roman civilizations and so on existed, people also had practically the same conception of the universe. As far as I'm aware, the idea of many universes floating within a causal ocean was not described outside of India, although maybe people did have that idea, but it just hasn't come down to us so prominently. But the ancient Greeks, for example, also had the idea of a universe which was contained within a shell. The Earth was at the center, and the different planets were moving around the Earth. So that conception was there. Now, in the Vedic literature, there's one basic description of the universe, which in the books we have is presented mainly in the 5th canto. And that describes a number of unique features, such as a universal mountain, which we call Mount Sumeru, and so on. You also find that in very ancient times, people in many parts of the world had this idea of Mount Meru. For example, the Greeks had this idea. They called it Mount Olympus. And by the time we come to the Greek civilization, they had placed it in Greece, a sort of parochial viewpoint. But the Greeks were fond of Greece, so they wanted everything to be there. So their Mount Olympus, though, really corresponds to Mount Meru, because it's a mountain on top of which the gods are dwelling. Zeus and so on lived on top of Olympus. So likewise, on top of Mount Meru, there are the dwelling places of different